I stopped with my presentation when I just finished to introduce the WMO information system, WIS. And now we are interested in maybe finding out a little bit what does it mean, what this WIS is now being implemented, how does it change the world as we know it. So there are several ways maybe in which the WIS changes some of the things you know. So say in 5 years what will have changed because of the WIS, and then also how does the WIGOS influence here. So you might know there's volume CA, so that means it's a publication, a WMO publication. It is sort of a reference material or some kind of database that is maintained by WMO. And there are several of these, but one that is important is volume C1. Later I will say what this is. There's also a volume A maybe that is affected a little bit. Of course, the WIS being a IT-driven initiative, data management, information management, the telecommunications are affected, and also the way we interact with the users of our services is affected. Last but not least, also other initiatives are influenced by WIGOS and WIS. So the volume C1, what is it? Volume C1 contains the list of meteorological bulletins for global, interregional and regional exchange on the GTS. So more or less, if it was up to date, then the GTS would, the volume C1 would contain all the things that flow around in the GTS. Of course, we are talking about this catalog of information available in WMO, so it is a little bit like the volume C1. So clearly it doesn't make sense to have both. Too much work to update both. So what will happen is that the WIS catalog will replace this volume C1 publication after 2015. Maybe it will still be available, but it will be automatically made from the catalog. The idea here, we have the WIS catalog, and it makes the volume C1 publication from the metadata. Then we have the volume A. Volume A contains a complete list of all the surface and upper air stations in operation which are used for synoptic purposes. So one from Qatar is there, and from your other countries. Also those stations that broadcast into the GTS are listed there. Now, as I said earlier already, the volume A will continue as a publication of its own because there's no metadata for each of the stations in the WIS. However, in the WIGOS implementation, there's WMO integrated observing system, which is more concerned with harmonizing products and coverage. There will be a development of a new database that will use the same principles as WIS, metadata about products, so here metadata about stations, to supersede the current volume A. So it will become a database where you can log in and upload metadata about stations. I remember about a year ago, I was in Muscat with your colleagues, and they asked a lot about station metadata. We need to get ready. We want to do something. What do we need to do? So having this station metadata, then they can use the WIGOS information resource and to feed into the new volume A. Now, why is this important? Um, we want a good coverage for certain areas of variables such as pressure or vapor, and we need to know where the gaps are. So where should there be stations so that we can have a certain coverage, and this new WIGOS information resource will help with that. Now, I should say this is not relevant to the topic here, which is the Marine Center as such, but I'm just here relating how the WIS and the WIGOS affect publications you know. Also, the metadata experience people will have gained in the WIS will be of obvious benefit to the WIGOS metadata then. Here's some ideas about telecommunications. So the telecommunications engineers here, they might know what a multicast is. So right now what we do is we send a message to one destination and then it sends it on maybe to two others, but it's always one-to-one, point-to-point. Now what we are looking at in the expert teams for telecommunications, for example, is how can we use multicast? Then we don't need to send many times the same information. Think about satellite picture too big to send so many times. So what will be the role of multicast there? Certainly between these big JISC centers there will be a multicast, but maybe also when it comes to outreach to users or from the JISC to national centers, multicast will certainly play a bigger role. There's also in WIS and beyond a tendency to work more with international standards rather than with WMO-made ones. So the ISO 19139 standard, or by that matter the TCP/IP we now use in the GTS, are all standards that come not from WMO but from outside, and we use them to great benefit because we can use industry components that are cheaper and also well tested in other areas, and also we can make, using those standards, our information available to others, thus increasing the relevance of the meteorological community. Then cloud-based network services are becoming more popular. The most known one is certainly the RMDCN, so the Regional Meteorological Data Communication Network by ECMWF, the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasts. This network is operated by one entity, the ECMWF, and available to certain members to subscribe to, which then can use it to send messages to all others who also subscribe to the same service. In this, the number of point-to-point links is greatly diminished because you only have one that you can use to talk to everybody. However, it is very reliable, much more reliable than the internet. So in that sense, it could be summarized as a cloud-based service. On the other hand, also the internet is gaining more traction. Here the VPN, for example, is used in other areas quite a lot. And I should also mention that in RA2, I think in the more eastern part, JMA has recently worked on also a MPLS that is a technology word you don't need to understand, but uh, the telecoms engineers know. Um, also a sort of cloud-based network is being built in the RA2. Last but not least, there's the IPv6 that is also coming closer. I think Asia is affected by address shortage, so IPv6 will play a bigger role. It is unclear which of the features of IPv6 will be of benefit to the meteorological community in particular, other than that we have more addresses. But in the WMO expert teams also we are looking at IPv6 to find out how it can be used. Now, why do I have this plate of spaghetti here on my presentation? Sometimes we have all these point-to-point links and we try to find out why it doesn't work, and then we really call them spaghetti diagrams because they're so complicated. The cloud-based technology makes it easier because there are less links, it costs less to maintain them, and we have more bandwidth. So here maybe some of the pasta spaghetti can be straightened using that technology. The outreach I will just only very quickly dwell on, but to increase the relevance of the meteorological community, we need to be better at communicating what we have, and the WIS helps with this because we can show what we have. By contributing to the WIS, you contribute to the increased visibility of the meteorological community. Then some more detailed points is, for example, how can the things we have show up in Google and then people come through Google to us. Thus, the authoritative source of the information is respected, but still people can find it in a search engine. And what can we do about those people who copy from our websites the information and then say it's theirs? So again here, if we have the WIS, then people will learn that this is the source where they can get the right information and use less other services. This I will skip. WIGOS and the GFCS benefit from WIS metadata. I said already that the experience with WIS metadata will then help with other kinds of metadata, for example, the one needed for the WIGOS. But already the WMO now talks a lot about climate services. That's the big talking point at this moment. So how can we as a meteorological community play a role in there? So climate services are the answer. But also climate services need to be found somehow. Maybe a big shipping company, they want to be insured against, weather events or so in the next 30 years. So they will look for somebody who can tell them how this certain route here through maybe the Gulf or around the Cape of Good Hope, what kind of weather events will be expected in the next 30 years. That's a service. And if this service is described correctly using metadata and input into the WIS, then a potential consumer can find this. So again, the WIS here helps. Here's the capacity development. I'm just sharing some pictures here. That's, I think, from Indonesia and South Africa, here across the Gulf. And I have already told you about the capacity development options that are available to you. Now, the last part of my presentation is about the marine safety services. These are relevant now to the other part, not the technical part so much of the Marine Center, but to those making the products. Any analysis starts, of course, with what is there already. And my dear colleague Edgar Cabrera, who is in charge of the Marine Safety Services, has given me here kindly a presentation that summarizes what is available. I think you will also have a chance to talk to him in person. So the Safety of Life at the Sea Convention, also known as SOLAS, states that those governments contracting into SOLAS are obliged to provide and promulgate meteorological information and warnings to shipping, and also that forecasts, warnings, synoptic and other meteorological data intended for ships shall be issued and disseminated by NMHSs in the best position to serve variable coastal and high seas areas, etc., etc. In the framework of the GMDSS, so the Global Marine Distress and Safety System, GMDSS. Here, the WMO and the IMO work together, and through their respective representatives in the country, the National Meteorological Service, respectively the National Maritime Authority. As you know, here I think you're in the Met area number 8, is it? Here, 9. And the Pakistan is the lead center here. However, responsibility can be delegated to what is called, I think, reporting centers. So those can be in charge of several sub-regions inside a Met area. Those Met areas, by the way, align with the NAF areas of the IMO. There's a precedent for this where, for example, in the areas 1, 2, and 3, Toulouse is the lead center, but the actual warnings are disseminated by the UK and Portugal, respectively. So what programs are there? There's the operational ocean forecasting system, so it's sort of GDPFS for the ocean. We have information about waves, storm surges, sea ice, ocean circulation, and others. And then there's also the climate aspects. Again, the more long-term outlook on these. Who's in charge? WMO, IOC, UNEP. And who are the users? Think of the GMDSS. It is mainly those ships over 200,000 tons, so tankers and cargo ships. So I think these are of high relevancy, of course, for the Gulf, where there are a lot of big ships. So any planning for a marine center probably will have to address this issue somehow. I have already informed you that the expert team here, ETMSS and ETWOFS, they are in charge of coordination for the TMDSS, and that in 1 month's time there will be a session in Tokyo to which a request to become such a preparatory center could be made. In the same way, this is the case for Croatia, for example, already. What other programs are out there? There's the MPERSS, which has to do with pollution and is the Marine Pollution Emergency Response System. There's the SAR, Search and Rescue Operations. So all these have been regulated in one way or another and are relevant to what a marine center could provide as services. So again, it would probably make sense to work through the established channels as you provide these services here in the sub-region. What about standards and quality management, regulatory documents? In the Secretariat, there's the WMO Manual on Marine Meteorological Service, WMO number 558, and the WMO Guide to Marine Meteorological Services, WMO number 471. There's also more ad hoc and less regulated material online, and a high need for quality management services. In the same way as the aviation has a strict quality management system, this is also introduced in the marine area. I think I will conclude now here. For questions about the marine activities, you can always reach the Marine Meteorology and Ocean Affairs Division at the WMO Secretariat. I'm of course at your disposition also if you have questions, or I can facilitate, as is already the case, the contact to Edgard. Now I should say also thank you, and maybe ask if there are some questions. Okay. You might recall when I talked about this service-oriented architecture. So the answer here is, since we only specify the service that needs to be provided, this is how the metadata needs to look like. It is entirely up to you what kind of software you use to implement this. Of course, guidance can be given as to what others do and what kind of software approach has been helpful somewhere else, but it is up to the implementing organization to decide what to use. And often it turns out that an existing service can be made compliant by some modifications rather than introducing a new system. When I go somewhere and I analyze the situation on the ground, often I look for a system that maybe already has a catalog of products that are available. So from this then a metadata system can be built easily without having to introduce something new. And there are maybe already some processes that are used to keep this up to date. Does that answer the question? Should I switch off the recording? uh, yes. So various ways exist how the National Center can be protected. First of all, it is your choice who you are affiliated with. Then second, there's also a process by which you can change your affiliation if you so wish. Then third, there's also the possibility to have an associated JISC. And fourth, there's a backup JISC, usually for the primary JISC, that can take over the services from the primary JISC in case of outages. So in the same way as in the GTS, it is also possible to have several connections. You can also have this in the JISC world. However, I should emphasize that the primary JISC needs to be designated because the metadata needs to be ingested into the system by one channel, not several, because otherwise there are problems with the synchronization. So you're fortunate enough to have in the RA2 quite a lot of JISCs. So there's a competition, and that usually means that there's a good service. I think in the WMO Secretariat we were very adamant on the choice. So it is up to the country to decide who to affiliate with. I should say, though, that as you have seen in my earlier presentation, one of the outcomes of the RA2 session was this, for now, definitive list of affiliations. However, there's a process to change it also at a later stage. Finally, I should say that the monitoring of the JISC service is implemented in two ways. One, there is an audit, so by which the capability to perform the services needed has to be demonstrated to the, again, acronym ETGDDP, the expert team on the JISC and DCPC demonstration process. So there are experts who come to the ground for a 2 or 3 day audit to see if the sender works okay. There is also a rolling review of capabilities process by which periodically those centers will be reassessed. Finally, there is the monitoring I mentioned earlier. You know that now there's the WWW monitoring and the special MTN monitoring, which will be greatly expanded to also cover JISC availabilities and availability of data and so on. However, so that this monitoring be helpful also for those national centers and DCPCs, I think also your voice in those bodies who will make the rules, what will be monitored, is needed. So a user perspective should be there, not only a JISC perspective. So you're encouraged to maybe provide some comments to the relevant expert teams as they draw up the monitoring rules. Please come back to me. Long answer, I hope. Yes, I understand. Often maybe people feel a bit anxious with these new systems that are demanded from WMO. How can we implement them? Then there's these companies, they say they can do it, but can they really do it? I think the participation of the private sector is quite welcome because they can do things cheaply and so. But on the other hand, we also need to be sure that we get what we need. So there's a bit of a balance here. As I said earlier, we have for the WIS the Jumpstart offer where you can get some help from experts. Usually the way WMO operates is not really that way. Usually members tell us what to do, not the Secretariat what you should do. But in the course of the WIS, we have seen that it was very appreciated by many members that some expertise from the Secretariat also flew back. This offer is also at your disposition. So again, you can contact my colleagues or myself. And I think also I have scheduled some time to get to know better your systems. We then can include that into the draft project implementation plan and maybe continue afterwards. Good. Then in the interest of time, I would now like to hand over to Moni Kumar for the presentation of the QMD Marine Center strategy. You can have the mic also. I think it's on the desktop.
Good afternoon to everybody. I don't want to take much of the time because already time is running. Just give you our DCPC plan. Before entering, because after this, our project manager from Croatia she's going to give you a brief introduction of the similar marine center in Croatia. So it is useful for our forecasters and our technical people to identify the gaps in our existing system. So I will give a small introduction. Our purpose of our marine center to provide marine weather forecasts and warning to shipping and parts of Met area 9 in this marked area 2. This whole area is Met area 9. It is now under Pakistan. Pakistan is giving the both issuing and preparatory service for this area. Now we decided to cover this area for Arabian Gulf area. So our purpose is to provide forecast and warning to shipping. Next one, what are the products? Synopsis and 24-hour forecast, navigational warnings and coastal warnings, gale warnings, wind and sea conditions. These are the products we plan to provide. And next one. now this is our Qatar forecasting area. This is the area we are actually now we are providing our services. After implementing our NWB system, and we can extend this service to the whole area. We can cover the entire area and we can extend our services to. And this is our implementation plan. Actually, last year we have planned, so it is from 2012. Set up of a dedicated Gulf Marine Center, set up of QMD WIS DCBC portal. It is for mainly for the service delivery, and the implementation of NWB capability of regional sea state model and atmospheric local area model. And after this, the real-time display of marine weather information and sea state NWB output on WIS Doga DCBC portal. We have to form one DCBC portal and we have to disseminate this our services through this Doga DCBC portal. And after that, this voice recording of our services through radio broadcast over the assigned area, that Arabian Gulf area. I already shown. This is in phase. Next phase, setting up of a marine meteorology research center together with some local university, and taking charge of the sea state and the weather forecast for the SETI area in the framework of GMDSS, Global Maritime Distress and Safety System. Yes, already explained. This is our implementation plan. And this is just introduction regarding our DCBC plan. And next, our project manager Croatia, she will explain the complete details regarding the Croatia DCBC center. And we will come to know the products they are producing in their center, and it will be very useful to enhance our capability. So, thanks.
Yeah, good. So I think it's very good to see some project plan here, also the timeline, and also very crucially the area in which these services should be provided. So as we heard from Ivan earlier, it will probably be very important to have some good international cooperation so that the area of responsibility is agreed with all those that are concerned. Yes, I think to work also with the GMDSS, that will also be a crucial point probably.
We are still novice in this environment. We have to equip ourselves with the guidance of Ivan and you. So just we have started our process. After this workshop only we have to stick with the help of WMO Secretariat and Croatian department. We will develop. Yes, yes. Actually, we planned for a separate workshop by inviting our national stakeholders, not only national stakeholders, our member countries also to this workshop.
Regarding this question, I think next week again the TPC and the meeting in Basket, they will discuss, I think, one issue.
Yes. And our director is also going to participate.
I think the Basket was making a program for all the jobs for the last weekend. I think you know about it. Yes. Now from beginning of 1998. But I think
Yes,
Is that
Zachary.
is that Minas?
Minas, yeah, in the oldest company here in the Gulf, taking all the navigation on the sea and
Yes. So our director will have to initiate to implement this as a sub-regional capacity involving national and meteorological services because they are utilizing the private company services.
yeah.
We have to work together